Hi guys, and welcome back to Aisha.Academy. Sorry for the lack of content. It's because I've been revising for my med school exams and it's just been a lot. But moving on, so I'll be going through the AQA GCSE higher ratio, proportion, and rates of change questions. So let's get right into it. Okay, so first things first, it says that here are two right-angled triangles, and it wants us to circle the value of y. So this is all to do with similarity of lengths. So the first thing that we can see is that the two similar lengths that we do have on both big and the small shapes is the 10 centimeters and the 15 centimeters. So the first thing with similarity of lengths is that you need to work out the scale factor. So the scale factor will be the big length 15 over 10, which will leave you with 1.5. So now we know the scale factor is 1.5. That means any length on the small triangle, to work out the length on the big triangle, you would need to multiply by 1.5. So we can see that our y length on our big triangle is similar to our 6 centimeters on the smaller triangle. So to work out what y is, we're going to do 6 times 1.5. And that should leave you with an answer of 9. So we know y is 9. Then the next question, it says Ed and Faye shared £330 in a ratio of 7 to 4. It says Ed gives Faye some money. Now Faye now has the same amount as Ed. So it wants us to work out how much does Ed give Faye. So first of all, we need to work out how much money they both initially have from the ratio. So if we add the ratio numbers together, 7 plus 4 gives you 11. So to work out what one part is equal to, you're going to do the total amount of money, which is 330, divided by 11, which should give you 30. Then that's equal to one part. So we know we've got Ed and then we've got Faye, and it's a 7 to 4 ratio. So how you know which numbers is who is because Ed is mentioned first, so that one is 7, and Faye's mentioned second, so she's 4. So then now to work out how much they both get, you're going to do 30 times 7 to work out Ed's amount, and that should give you 210. And to work out what Faye gets, you would do 30 times 4, which would give you 120. So then now, in order to work out how much Ed is going to give Faye, remember they both end up having the same amount of money. So that means they both have equal amounts each. So to work out that amount that they should have each, you would do the total amount divided by 2, because that would be equal. So then that would give you £165. So Faye should end up with 165, and so should Ed. So in order to work out how much Ed should give Faye to give that amount of money, there's two ways you could work it out. You could either do 210, which is how much Ed has, minus 165, or you can do 165 minus 120 that Faye has. And that should leave you with 45. So we know that Ed is going to give Faye £45, so they have the same amount of money. So moving on to the next question, it says Joe and Kyle share an amount of money in a ratio of 7 to n. Then it says that Joe gets 35% of the money, and it wants us to work out the value of n. So if Joe gets 35% of the money, then to work out how much Kyle gets, you would do 100% minus 35%. So you know that Kyle would get 65% of the money. If we put that in a ratio of Joe to Kyle, that'll be 35 to 65. Now, it's already given us a ratio of 7 to n. So to go from 35 to 7, we'd need to, if you could do 35 divided by 7, which is 5. So we know that if we divide 35 by 5, you get 7. So do the same thing on the other side to Kyle, which means that n would be equal to 13, because the ratio would be 7 to 13. Then the next question says the value of a house is £120,000, and it says the value is expected to increase by 5% each year. It wants us to work out the expected value after 4 years and give your answer to two significant figures. So if you're working out that each year it's going to increase by 5%, this is a bit like compound interest. And when it comes to compound interest questions, what you can do is you can do the rate divided by 100 plus 1, and that should give you 1.05. So now we know the constant rate each year, you can multiply it by 1.05. We start off with 120,000. Because it's after 4 years, you're going to do times 1.05 to the power of 4. So you always do to the power of how many years after that. And that should leave you with an answer of £145,860.75. But you wouldn't leave your answer like that because it wants it to two significant figures. So we'd need to round this up. So that would be rounded to £150,000 to two significant figures. Then the next question goes on to say that y is inversely proportional to x, and it wants us to complete the table. So before we complete the table, we first of all need to work out the formula. So in order to work out the formula, it would be y is our equal sign, and then inversely proportional means our constant k would be divided by x. So we need to actually work out what the constant is first. So in order to do that, we can see here that we have both the 6 and the 4. So if we substitute those values in, we can work out our constant k. So when y is 4, x is equal to 6. So to work out what k is, if we rearrange this, k is equal to 4 times 6, which is 24. So now we know what our constant is. The actual equation is y is equal to 24 over x. So then in order to work out the missing values, we just need to substitute what we have into the formula. So if we look here first, it says when x is 12, we need to work out what y is. So y would be equal to 24 divided by 12, which is 2. And then here we've been given y is 8, and we need to work out what x is. So 8 would be equal to 24 over x. So x would be equal to 24 divided by 8, which is 3. Then, moving on to question 6, it says the height of Zach is 1.86 meters and the height of Fred is 1.6. So it wants us to write the height of Zach as a fraction of Fred. So that will be 1.86 over 1.6. And then the easiest way to, when it's in the simplest form, you want them to be whole numbers in your fraction. So if you times both top and bottom by 100, that would leave you with 186 over 160. So then now simplify this, find a common factor. So if I divide both top and bottom by 2, that would leave me with 93 over 80. We can't simplify this any further, so this would be our final answer. Then moving on to question 12, it says the graph shows how much Molly is paid for working up to 40 hours. It says the basic rate of pay for the, it says she receives a basic rate of pay for the first 35 hours and then a higher rate for the next 5 hours. So let's have a look at the graph. So as we can see here, you've got a basic, like a straight line up to the 35 hours, and then the next 5 hours has another straight line, but it's slightly steeper, so that's representing a higher rate of pay. Then the question wants us to work out the difference between the higher rate of pay and the basic rate of pay. So first things first, we're going to work out the basic rate of pay. And in order to work out the basic rate and the higher rate, when we do work out, is we're going to work out the gradient. So I'm going to pick 2 points on the graph. So the easiest points I'm going to think of is the top end and the bottom end. So in order to work out the top end value at 35 hours, I'm going to draw a line across. And if it was a nice neat straight line, which I'm sure you would do on a piece of paper, that would be £280. So then remember, your gradient is your change in y by the change in x. So that'll be 280 minus 0 over 35 minus 0. So then working that out, that would leave you with an answer of £8 per hour. So in order to work out the higher rate, again, the higher rate is the steeper graph. So I'm going to pick this point and the end point. So the top point here is 35 minus the 280 over 40 minus 35, because that's my difference in my x for the gradient. And then that would leave me with 70 over 5, which would be £14 per hour. So now to work out the difference between the rates, difference means subtract. So you would end up doing 14 minus 8, which is £6 per hour. Then it goes on to say a ball is thrown vertically, and it says the graph shows the height of the ball above the ground after it's thrown. So let's have a look at the graph. So here's our graph, and it's showing the maximum height of the ball, and then it drops back down. So it says after how many seconds is the ball at instantaneous rest when it is in the air? So instantaneous rest when it comes to questions to do with balls or particles. Basically, if you throw a ball in there, there is a moment where it kind of rests in the air. It's very small. Even if you look at it in real life, if you throw a ball up in the air, it kind of rests for a bit before it drops back down. So that point is here on this graph, because it's rested for a tiny bit before it's dropped. So it wants us to work out how many seconds that occurs at. So if we look at that highest point, it's coming down to 1.5 seconds. So we can see that after 1.5 seconds, that's when the ball is at instantaneous rest. Then again, this part C is the same question, same graph. Not same question, but same graph, sorry. But then this time, it's now saying work out the average speed of the ball when it is moving downwards. So we know that speed is equal to distance divided by time. So then the average speed, in order for us to work it out, we're going to do the total distance divided by total time. So we can see that the highest distance, well, the total distance from when it's moving downwards, we can see it starts off here. That's about 4.6 meters, and it's going back down to 0. So total distance is 4.6, then total time Remember, it's starting at that 1.5, that instantaneous rest, and then its end time is 3.5 seconds. So to work out the time of just it moving down, it will be the difference of 3.5 and 1.5, which would be 2. So you do 4.6 divided by 2, which would leave you with 2.3 meters per second. Okay, moving on to the next question. It says that, I just straighten it up. It says that P is a rectangle with a length 50 centimeters and a width X, and then Q is a rectangle with a width Y, but we don't know its length. So it says that the length of Q is 20% more than the length of P, and it says the area of Q is 10% less than the area of P, and it wants us to work out the ratio of X to Y. So first things first is that we do know our length P is 50. So if Q is 20% more than 50, we could just work out 20% of the length P, which is 50, and add that on to 50. Or a quick way of doing it is 20% as a percentage. If you're adding it on to 100% of something, would leave you with 120%. So Q is like equal to 120%. 120% is a decimal. If you divide that by 100, would give you it as a decimal, which is 1.2. So you could do 50 times 1.2, and that should leave you with 60. That should leave you with 60. So the length of Q is 60 meters. Now, sorry, centimeters. Now, we know the area is length times width. So area of P would be 50 times X, and the area of Q would be 60 times Y. So notice how it says the area of Q is 10% less than the area of P. So if something's 10% less than 100, that's equal to 90%. So our Q is equal to 90% of P. And 90% as a decimal, if you divide that by 100, is 0.9. So this 50x, if you times it by 0.9, should essentially be equal to 60y, which is our area of Q. So then 0.9 times 50 would leave you with an answer of 45. So that's 45x is equal to 60y. So now we have 45x, 60y. We are going to simplify that, so divide both sides by 15, because that's the highest common factor. So that will leave you with 3x to 4y. Okay. Then the next question says a shopkeeper compares the income from the sales of a laptop in March and April. So it says by what fraction does the income from these sales decrease in April? So having a look at it, the table is giving us the price in April compared to the price in March. So right here, April, and then March. So first things first is that March, if we just say March, is like our ether, aka 100%, since that's the comparison. So April, it says that the price is 1/5 more than March. So the price 1/5 as a percentage is 20%. So it's like equal to 120%, aka 1.2. And then a quarter as a fraction, as a percentage, sorry, is 25%. So it's like, but it's 25% less. So then you would do 100 minus 25, which would be 75. That's 75%, aka 0.75. So now to compare the income, your income is always your price times the numbers you've sold. So March, 1 times 1 is just 1. But if you do 1.2 times 0.75 for April, you would end up with 0.9. So in total, our income for April is 0.9, but March it's 1. So it's now compare them as a fraction to show the decrease of sales. It's like kind of like your percentage change or just any change of anything. So then the difference between March and April is 1 minus 0.9. Do that over 1 because March, you're comparing it to March. So you're trying to see the change of April compared to March. So then that would be 0.1 over 1. And if you put that into your calculator, that's equal to, so if you times that by 100, that would be equal to 10%. So because it says by what fraction, Remember, 10% as a fraction is the same as saying 10 over 100, also known as 1 out of 10, if you divide both top and bottom by 10. So as a fraction, it's decreased by 1 out of 10. Okay, then it goes on to say how many millimeters are in a kilometer. So we know that there are 1,000 meters in 1 kilometer, and there are 1,000 millimeters in 1 meter. So to work out how many millimeters are in a kilometer, times 1,000 by 1,000, that should give you a million. So there's a million millimeters in 1 kilometer. This is now linking to your standard form. So to write a million in standard form would be 1 times 10 to the power of 6, because your first number in your standard form must range between 1 and 9.99, so the decimal would go here. Then you'd count how many spaces after that, and there's about 6 numbers after that, so that would tell you what is to the power of 10. So then it's about 10 to the 6. Then moving on, it says that y is inversely proportional to root x, and it says y is 4, x is 9. So it wants us to work out the equation connecting y and x. So again, the same method that I used previously. So it will be y is our equal sign. Inversely proportional means k is going to be over, and it's root x this time. So we need to work out our constant k, and we're going to do that using the values they've given us. So when y is 4, x is 9. So the square root of 9 is 3. Then to work out what k is, you would do 4 times 3, which would be 12. So the formula would be y is equal to 12 over root x. Okay. Then it's a follow-up question of that. Same formula. The only difference now, it says work out the value of y when x is 25. So it will be y is equal to 12 over root 25. So the square root of 25 is 5. So it'll be 12 over 5. And 12 divided by 5 would leave you with an answer of 2.4. So that's that question. Then moving on, it says B is 2/3 of C. So B is equal to 2/3 of C. And it says 5A is equal to 4C. So it wants us to work out the ratio of A to B to C. So the first thing is that we're going to change the formula of B is equal to 2/3 over C, because we don't like fractions, we like whole numbers. So to do that, we're going to multiply both sides by 3. And by doing that, you're going to get rid of the fraction. So that will leave you with 3B is equal to 2C. So we want the C's to be the same so we can put them together in one ratio. So we know that if we multiply this top formula or equation by 2, that's going to give us 4C, which we like because we've got 4C down here too. So then that would leave us with 6B is equal to 4C. So if you now want to squish that together, that means 5A is equivalent to 6B because that's equivalent to 4C. See what I did there? We can't simplify this any further. So you're just going to have 5A, 6B, 4C. And that's the end of that. Oh, I didn't even realize that's the end. So that's the end of that. I hope that was very useful, and thanks for watching.